Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to Mentor Monday. Mentor Monday is your weekly microdose of encouragement, inspiration, and miracle grow on your potential as a coach. As we are getting started, here's what we always love to do. I hate just simply being a talking head. What I really enjoy doing is actually being here and connecting with every one of you. And so do us a huge favor, particularly if you're on Facebook or on YouTube following us right now. You're actually seeing that below that says, hey, let us know that you're here. Connect with us. Tell us where you're joining us from. Maybe something that you're excited about, what you're hoping to have as a takeaway today. Go ahead and fill that up. Also, let us know if you actually have been enjoying the series that we've been in. And there's Michelle, who's joining us from North Carolina. Welcome, Michelle. Just as you're making it into the room, make sure that you make your presence known. Also, do us a huge favor. We try our best to create content that is just for you, that we want to add as much value to you and make it worth your while as we possibly can. Do us a huge favor and also let us know if we're doing a good job or not by hitting the like or commenting or actually sharing this post, because this is going to actually hit a lot of different people, not just coaches. So it's always really important to us to put things together that's actually helpful. And when you hit like or you comment, it tells YouTube and it tells Facebook and even Instagram that we are doing a good job. So welcome everybody who's joining us from all over the world, including Marilyn, who's joining us from Vancouver, Canada. She says, love these sessions. I appreciate that. Humble, who's joining us from Nigeria, my first live. Welcome. I'm happy that you joined us for the first time. Lumine, who is joining us from the Bay Area. Welcome. And look, South Carolina is now in the house. Fran from South Carolina. Welcome so much, Fran. Just again, as you guys are making it into the room, make sure that you say hello to us and tell us where you're joining us from. Again, one more time, like this post, share it, comment. This topic, especially today, is going to hit a lot of people besides coaches. And again, we want to have as many people benefit from this as we possibly can. If this is your first time joining us and you haven't been with us the last few weeks, this is actually what we're talking about today, which is bad money beliefs that keep you broke. We're in week 5, and this week we are talking about the bad money belief of, I don't deserve to make a lot of money. And here's one of the things that, if you haven't been with us the last few weeks, why are we actually approaching this series? Well, here's the problem with bad money beliefs in general and just limiting beliefs in general. If there's anything that you're going after in your life, anything that you are going after, let's say that the target for whatever you want in your life is over here. A limiting belief is anything that limits you with regard to your resources, that doubts your capability. You can fill in the blank. It's anything that in many cases is not necessarily true. Whoa, as my voice is cracking. What is going on? I like hit puberty all over again in the middle of this thing. Hey, you just got to notice it. I noticed it. Maybe everybody else noticed it. So a limiting belief is anything that stands in the way between where we are and where we really want to go. And honestly, the reason why people don't have the kinds of lives that they want and the things that they really most desire is always a belief. It's the belief system that is really problematic. And it's actually very easy to overcome limiting beliefs. What we really have to do is that if this is the limiting belief right here, all we really need to eliminate a limiting belief is enough doubt that we begin to question, what is the belief? Why is it in place? Why is it there? And honestly, if we don't take care of it, if we don't lay hold of it and destroy it and move it out of the way and actually replace the belief, then we're going to continue coming up against this barrier over and over again. So I see a lot of coaches, but people in general who get tripped up with limiting beliefs about money. And if you believe something like today's limiting belief that we're talking about, that you don't deserve to have money, how many of you know that if you don't believe that you deserve to have money, you're not going to have money? And there's plenty of people who believe that they don't deserve to have money. And you know what? Guess what? They don't have money. Because what ends up happening is that at a certain point, the things that you need to do in your life. A limiting belief is going to create a conflict in you. And so the conflict comes up so often for coaches is that the things that they need to do for their business, the thing that they need to do to acquire clients, that they have this inability to follow through or to follow through consistently because the limiting belief keeps showing up and it keeps shutting them down. It keeps stopping them. And so we're spending a lot of time in this series because so many coaches want to help people live their best life, but they are not honestly living their best life. And so we need to go after these things. And so this one's so common. And honestly, I hear from coaches all over the world. And it's really cool to hear from coaches and hear them say, oh, this is really helping me and all of those things. Let's take a little bit deeper look at this particular belief so that you can understand really what this limiting belief is so that we can move it out of the way and then we can make a new belief around it. And here's the belief, obviously, it's I don't deserve to make a lot of money. And the operative word that I really see in here is this word right here. Let me see if I can actually just grab it really quickly. Let me change my color. I'm gonna write in red. It's this word right here, deserve. I don't deserve to make a lot of money. Now, it's a really important word because when somebody says they deserve something or they don't deserve something, see, the words that we use actually mean something. So there's deeper meaning of something that's going on here. And I think it's pretty common for us if we say that we don't deserve something, you know what we're really saying is that what we're talking about essentially is merits. And when I talk about merits, really what I'm talking about is that we do the right stuff or we do the wrong stuff. We're maybe in another sense, we're talking about some kind of qualification for why we should get something or why we shouldn't. And so generally speaking, the average person, when they say, I don't deserve something, they think that it's truly merit-based. Well, let's start to knock this out. And I'm going to knock it out, first of all, with this. If somebody said to me, if they came up to me and they said, Paul, you don't deserve to make a lot of money, I would look at them in the eyes, and the first thing that I would say is, you are absolutely right. That is awesome. Thank you so much for stating the obvious. I mean, let's think about it. How many things in your life do you get that you don't deserve? And how many things in your life do you not get that you deserve? I mean, let's think about it in your life. Like, I don't know about you, but I am so thankful that there's things that I did when I was a total bonehead, when I was younger, you know, and there's so many things. Like, I could go down to a long list. I mean, just full disclosure, I can think of one time when I was in college and I was drinking underage, and I was in this little podunk town in Tennessee, have no idea what I was doing there and what I was doing there drinking, and also what I was doing there drinking without, like, I legally couldn't get alcohol. I had gotten alcohol, and then I got behind the wheel of a car. Now, thank God I wasn't driving at a high rate of speed or anything else, but I see these blue lights, and you know what? I was supposed to register for college the next day. I had just gotten accepted into a prestigious program. I'd went to college the semester before, or 2 semesters before, whatever, and I just gotten enrolled in a prestigious program that not many people get accepted into. And here I am in the local jail, because it was like this, like nothing jail. And they've got me handcuffed and they got me sitting at the table, and they literally have all of my stuff all sprawled out on the table, trying to figure out what am I doing in their town and asking me a bunch of questions. Now, the interesting thing is that after a little while, those cops are at least able to look at me and say, well, you know what? We could completely ruin this kid's life, or we could do this. And they made it in no uncertain terms that everything that I had done that night was going to ruin everything. And they gave me a long laundry list of everything else. And the reality is they let me out of there with about a $50 fine that night. And thankfully, I learned my lesson about that. But the reality is that it could have been so much more harsh. You know, I mean, the interesting thing is that no one found out about it. The program I was enrolled in, my mom didn't find out about it. Nobody found out. It's like, okay, this was something that I actually deserved, right? Well, the reality is that there have been so many moments in our life when we have done something that we probably deserve something really bad. Aren't you thankful that the various things that you did in your life that you didn't get what you deserved during that time? And here's what I'd also say on the other thing is that we get amazing things every day that we haven't lifted a finger towards. Like, this weekend, we got rain in California where I live. We rarely get rain. You know what? I had nothing to do with that. And not only did I get rain around my city and around my little county and everything else, but everybody else got rain. And you know what I got today? I got beautiful weather that was in the 60s, and it's sunny and it's breezy and it's pretty much perfect. And there's a sunset tonight over the ocean where I live. And you know what? It's not just for me. Like, everybody got it. Regardless of how anybody woke up today, no matter what they did this weekend or anything else, do you realize that every person around where I live got the identical thing that I did? You know what it's called? It's called mercy. And mercy finds you every day of your life, really. Like, mercy woke you up on this Monday, even if you really didn't show up last Monday. Even if you've been hating Monday for all of your working life, do you know that mercy still woke you up because you didn't get what you deserved? You got something amazing. You know what you do when you get mercy? You look in your life and you say, man, I am really grateful that even if I blew it yesterday, even if I blew it this weekend, even if I didn't show up and I didn't live into the character that I could have had or any of those other things, that I get the opportunity again to say yes and to steward another day, to take hold of another day. So first thing that I'm going to think of is like, absolutely, there's a lot of things that I don't deserve that I have, and I can't really take credit for those things. Now, on the other side of things, is this ends up being a really gigantic belief system with regard to money. And on the other side of things is that there's a lot of people who are thinking that whether or not they make money or anything else is all based out of the merits of different things that they have done or they haven't done in their life. And it's very interesting as people are looking at the merits of their life, because the reality is that if the average individual judged other people like they judge themselves, they would be seen as one of the most judgmental people in the world. They would be seen as a person who really didn't have a whole lot of mercy and maybe not even a whole lot of thought about other people. You'd probably think if you judge other people like you judge yourself with regard to whether or not you're deserving of something, you might be one of the most judgmental people walking on the planet if you treated other people like you treat yourself. But the reality is that most of the time is that the people who don't believe that they are deserving have incredible grace for other people in their lives. And so what that means is that we've got to actually look at ourselves legitimately with a true, accurate, fair lens, a fair assessment of ourselves so that we don't get stuck. See, what happens out of this belief system, I'll try to draw it for you. Let's imagine right here that this is a pathway, okay? And here's us walking this little pathway. And let's say that over here is my goal or it's my destiny. Now, here's what the average individual does, is that they believe that in order to deserve something, there is often all of these arbitrary things that have to be checked off. Let's call the things that we need to check off is that there are rules involved in how I walk the path, how I get from point A to point B. How I make myself deserving is that there, in many cases, are these rules, and they're really arbitrary. Matter of fact, the average person hasn't really thought about what those rules are. But see, the problem is that there's only one small, narrow path. There's not a whole lot of options for them to actually get what they want. And so the result is they just simply feel undeserving. You might even use the term imposter syndrome. about these people because they don't feel like at the end of the day that what they're doing really matters enough to warrant whether or not they are deserving of something. I'll show you a few examples of what this looks like. So if I said to someone, hey, well, if you feel like right now that you don't, and this is what you need to do in your life right now, if this is a belief system, if you don't deserve to make a lot of money, then let me ask you this question. What would tell you in your heart that you actually deserve to make a lot of money? Now, people can be as arbitrary as you want, but these might be a few that someone might say. Well, they'd say, well, if I had the education or the training, then I could feel like I deserve to get paid a lot of money. Or somebody might even say, well, if I've worked hard enough, or if it's difficult, then maybe I should get paid a lot of money. Or they might even say something as arbitrary as this. They might say, well, my past, because of my past and what I have done in my past, that is actually disqualifying me for the future all the time. Well, let me tell you some of my history with this. Like, let's say that somebody says, well, you know what? If I had enough training, if I had enough education, then you know what that would mean? That would mean that, oh, you know, I deserve it at that point. So there was literally people, and I don't know if you ever met people like this, but when I was growing up, they would kind of say, hey, if you went to any Ivy League school, you have a golden ticket. Or, you know, certain schools that were around you or whatever. And so there's some people who would actually be like, oh, if I went to this school, then now I'm going to finally feel like I'm deserving because I went to this school. Or if I just had more training or more credentials or more education, then I would feel legitimate then. Well, interesting thing for me is that when I was growing up, we lived in a very poor town when I was probably up to about high school. We lived in a very poor town of about 6,000 with one traffic light in southeast Missouri. It was in the Boot Heel. It was actually voted at one time one of the worst places in the United States to live in because it wasn't near a major city and all the other problems and everything with it. And when I lived there, I remember when I was growing up, I didn't work very hard at school. Like, for whatever reason, school, I almost felt like I was, because of the way that people would act, like, well, Paul doesn't even work hard. Well, Paul doesn't even study. Well, Paul doesn't really even apply himself in this area. I heard it so much that the reality is that when it came to my own education, when it came to my own training, it started making me think that I was a fraud. Because the value for the people who are around us, because we were in a very agricultural town, the value of the people around us was this whole idea of working hard, of really applying yourself and all of these other kinds of things. And so the reality is that even though school and some of those things seemed to be kind of easy, and I kind of beat the system, like I made good grades or whatever, but I didn't really apply myself, I always felt like, oh, you know what? Well, I'm just really like, you know, that doesn't really count. You know, like this doesn't really matter. Like I'm not deserving because of the way that I've shown up in life in this particular area. And another thing that happened is that when I started working, I remember what my first job was. My first job is I went to work for my uncle. He bought this trailer park, which was a great investment. Those of you he bought a trailer park, that is not a good investment. Well, my grand plan for my uncle was there was this highway that was in front of it that was supposed to be widened probably within the next 5 or 10 years. So his idea was, I'm going to buy this property, and when they widen it, then I can sell it and I can make a profit. But in the meantime, he actually had to fix it up for the residents who were living in there. And I remember during that time, it was summertime. It was, obviously summertime. I was in Louisiana. I'm looking for a job because all of our family lived in Louisiana and everything. And I'm like looking for a job. And my uncle was like, why are you looking for a job? And I'd never had a job before in my life. Why are you looking for a job? And I'm like, well, I kind of need a job. He's like, You don't need to look for a job. You can come work for me. I'll give you $100 a week. Look, you go from nothing to $100 a week. And I'm like, that sounds like a great deal. I will do that. Except that I was working 50 hours a week. And so when you do the math, it's not really working out in my favor. Well, I am not made like my brother. My brother can fix anything. He engineering, any ingenuity, works hard. He's worked hard every day of his life. There's all of these things that my brother seemed that he could do anything, he can fix anything, whatever. That was not in my skill set. So here my uncle is hiring me, bringing me in this place to do renovation. And even a hammer in my hand did not look right. Like there was just nothing that I could do except brute strength kinds of things, which was basically tearing things up. So the extent of what I was doing there, the biggest thing that I was doing was ripping paneling out of trailers and all kinds of stuff. He gave me all of this black roofing stuff, and I'm literally up on the roof. And I remember every day I'd have to pretty much take a bath in kerosene. So my entire summer, I smelled like kerosene. I was a walking fire hazard. And it seemed like most of the tar was on me and ruining all of my clothes, but it wasn't on anything else. But you know what I looked like? It was 90 something degrees and 90% humidity. So the reality was that everywhere that I looked like I was working really hard. And if anybody had asked me, have you earned your money? I'd say absolutely, because I was working hard and I'm sweating all over the place and everything else. And that's what the value was that was taught to me my whole life, that if I'm working hard, then I've made myself deserving. But you know what? The reality is I didn't add very much value to my uncle. I ate him out of house and home that summer because he would be like, let me let you get into the refrigerator until he saw how much a teenager was eating. And I really did not add value. Like I can't go back. I couldn't have went back 6 months before and said, here's what I actually did. Here's how I added value to my uncle during these times or anything else. See, that's the problem is that a lot of times we borrow off of other people's values. Like when I was growing up in a small town in southern Missouri, I thought that working hard was the value, that's how you actually showed your worth. But the reality is that adding value to somebody does not mean that you work by the sweat of your brow all the time. It really doesn't. It's literally, what can you help people bring change, bring transformation in their life, all of those other kinds of things. You know, something that's also interesting is that when I started coaching people and everything, I remember a handful of years ago, I was coaching someone and they just told me, they were like, you know, I just feel like I'm a phony or whatever. And I'm like, what do you mean you feel like a phony? Because I knew what they'd done in their life, where they'd come from, all of the things that they were doing and everything else. And where they came from was very humble beginnings and everything else. But what they were doing was really significant. And here's this person who's on the top of a lot of things in higher education and everything else. They were a go-to person and everything else. And they told me they felt like a fraud. And I was like, well, what's that based on? Now, they had done all the training. They'd done all the schooling. They had all of the degrees and everything else. But you know what they told me? I feel like a fraud because I'm not as smart as everybody else, because I had to work 5 times as hard as everybody else, because I had dyslexia and all of these other things. They were giving me this whole list of things that they were saying that they went through while they were going through college and everything else. And at the end of it, they didn't feel like they were deserving of anything that they had, nor could they legitimize it. And it was crazy to me because I'm on the other side of the fence saying, wow, you know, I got a college degree and all of this other stuff, but I never could legitimize myself because I didn't feel like I was working hard enough. And here's this person working their butt off and is proving it in life, and they still don't feel legitimate. Isn't it weird how we could kind of like be on the opposite sides of the fence? Because it's not really logical, is it? It doesn't make any sense. And I remember how this individual got freed up. I said, well, tell me this. What's more important to you? Is what you as a teacher and working in higher education, if you had a student who was working all night, they worked all night, they had a full-time job, but they were working their butts off as a student and they were showing up, doing all their assignments, putting all the work in and all the effort, would you say that student isn't smart, Would you say that they weren't legitimate? And they were like, no, that's one of my students. I would have been so proud, and I would have loved to have had a student like that. And it's amazing how you can show that grace and mercy for that individual, but for some reason you can't apply it to yourself. What's often this kind of thing. And so what ends up happening is it's like, hey, well, what's most important? Is the result that you're showing in your life? Is that the most important, or the process to kind of get there? The steps of getting to wherever you go. See, that's the problem with our rules, is that our rules a lot of time are not favorable to us at all. Our past, I understand you had a past. Listen, if any one of us made a mistake in our past, I guarantee you, if all of us knew what we knew now when it came to our past, we would go back in time and we would change it. That is the proof of growth, because we are not who we were then making those decisions. We're very different people now. And unfortunately, the greatest lessons we've ever learned in our life have come from our past, right? How do we actually make this shift? How do we actually make this switch with regard to this? Well, here's what I would say about all of this stuff in general, is that if your rules that you are making to make yourself deserving are not attainable, if they leave you stuck, if they make you feel less, if inside you there is no way to change it, then it's a bad rule. Because the reality is that the only thing that any of us can be accountable for in our life is not what we don't have. The only thing that will be the accounting of your life is whether or not you actually utilize what you do have. And see, we keep setting these rules, which really, you know where they come from? They come from comparison. And sometimes they're coming from value systems of other kinds of people. See, the rule that wore me out for a lot of my life was this whole thing that you're not going to be affirmed unless you are working by the sweat of your brow and working really, really hard. If it has a high degree of difficulty, and some of you actually have this right now going in your life, if you work hard enough or it's a high degree of difficulty for you, then you should be rewarded for it. Well, I understand that some people are doing particular jobs and it is taking all of the effort that they have in their life. But some people believe that if something is easy, if something's just in the flow, if it's as easy as extending their hand, if somebody is working their passion, which is what coaches are doing, then if you pursue your passion, you should not be rewarded, that you are undeserving because it doesn't feel like pain, then that is a bad rule. Why does work have to be associated with pain all the time? I can find a lot of different ways to actually find pain in my life if I want to, but your passion in a lot of cases is not causing the kind of pain when you are working outside of what you are actually made to do. And so this whole undeserving, deserving thing, we have rules right now that are not designed to allow us to win. They make us feel terrible. And the worst part is that it's leaving a lot of people broke as a result of it. Now, let me finish up with this. Let me bring it together so that we can actually have an answer to this thing, okay? Transformation with regard to this belief really means this, is that we've got to quit focusing on comparison. I understand comparison. I understand being inspired what other people are doing. But I can't look at myself through any kinds of lens, but through my own lens, which means that I have my own potential to actually work out. It means that the only accounting that I can really make of my life is whether or not I'm stewarding and I'm maximizing everything that I am. Listen, there's so much stuff that, like I said, I can't take credit for, and you can't take credit for. Like, You had no choice in the parents that you have. You have no choice in where you were born. You have no choice in a lot of things that happened to you when you were a little kid. I can't even take credit for the fact that I live in the greatest country in the world and all the opportunities that exist because I live in this country. And I'm not going to feel bad about it either. And the other thing is, too, is that I can't, there's a bigger question that's like, while we're comparing what we don't have compared to some, the reality is that I could always find somebody who is less talented than you, less skills, worse past, all of those other kinds of things. It's amazing how we can celebrate people who have limited skill and have had limited potential in their life and the things that have blown up. But we would look at ourselves as people who don't have as much or who are less. Reality is that we've all been given gifts in particular areas and skills in particular areas. The judgment that we really need to, it's not based on what everybody else is doing or anything else, is that the only thing at the end of the day is how am I stewarding, maximizing my life? Have any of you fully lived into your potential? Now, if you're waking up in the morning and you're feeling some of those feelings like, oh, I am not deserving or whatever, well, we have to have new, like, fair standards that we are measuring ourselves by, first of all. But the second thing is, hey, I can understand if you wake up in the morning and you haven't been working on you. I can understand if you wake up in the morning and you haven't been developing yourself. You know what that means? Go out and develop yourself. Get rid of that guilt and shame about it or whatever it is, and actually work on yourself. Like, there's nothing that's actually keeping you from being able to do that. Now, that's a different kind of value. When you actually value what you have and what you possess, and you're willing to actually put in the work, that's significant kinds of work. And I can understand feeling a little bit funky about that if you're not honest with yourself. But comparing ourselves to other people is not getting us anywhere. Here's the next thing, is that we've got to shift our focus onto serving. That if we could move to a place where we add more value than we ever have in our life, that's the focus. It's not on the skill. You're not getting really paid on the skill that you have. Let's just be really clear on this, okay? You're not getting paid for your skill. You're not getting paid for your talent. You're not getting paid for your education. You're not getting paid for your past. You're not getting paid for any of those kinds of things. Just so that we're really straight, is at the end of the day, nobody gives a crap about where you went to school or any of those other things. You know what they care about? Whether or not you add value to me in my life. That's all that anybody really, really cares about. Because it's an interesting world that we live in, probably more so than any time, is that people who are adding value to people are making mega bucks in a very short period of time with a fraction of the education that we think that people need, because that's what people are really looking for at the end of the day. And honestly, that's what we should have all been taught was the most important thing anyway, is am I adding value as an employee, as a person showing up in the world? And you know what? I can't always judge that. The reality is that sometimes I'm going to be a poor judge of whether or not I'm adding value. Have you ever heard somebody tell you how amazing you were, how much you had done for them in their life, and you're kind of sitting there like, yeah, right, whatever. I didn't do anything for that person. That is a myopic view. It is a complete break with reality. You can't measure what kind of an impact you're making in most cases, unless you're constantly asking for feedback with people. And if you legitimize the feedback based on what the person's experience is, their experience matters. So if you show up and somebody's life changes, or they're improved, or they have less pain in their life, they have more pleasure in their life, you've added some kind of benefit to their life, who are you to judge that you have not impacted their life? How dare you invalidate somebody else's experience of you in their life? Now, can you grow into even more skills and do more things? Yes, but you can't invalidate somebody else's experience of your impact in their life. You've got to start being fair with yourself. You've got to start actually making a difference. And the way that you make a difference is actually allowing the experience that someone else says about you. Like if you get up to speak somewhere and they're like, oh, that really touched my life, that was amazing. Not to sit there and be like, well, it wasn't my best, and that's not what I meant to do, and I tripped over my words, and my PowerPoint wouldn't work or whatever. It's to say no, that we stop this nonsense and we validate the experience that other people are having in their lives. And one of the biggest ways that we get rid of being undeserving is that every day I'm thinking about people and how I can serve them, how I can add value. Here's one thing that's true for me in my life. No one will ever pay me as much as the value that I bring to them. We all need to be able to say that with a straight face and a clear conscience every day. That means that I always have the opportunity to serve, and figure out better, more effective ways of actually doing it, and paying attention to the kinds of feedback that I'm getting for people so that I can make adjustments in my coaching or whatever I need to do to benefit them. You know what? I'm going to be a lifelong learner, not because I really enjoy going to school, but because I want to draw out my own potential, and I want to be able to help more people. If I live like that every day, I'm going to agree with the fact that there's plenty of things that I'm not deserving of in my life, and that's okay with me. I'll take that. But I'm also going to steward my life every day and grow and become the person that I know that I was made to be. And I'm enjoying that journey. But I don't need to prove anything else to anybody else, nor do I need to prove it to myself. I just want to be every day stewarding my life, stewarding the giftings that I have, and finding a way that I can serve people in more ways and adjusting what I do based on what their needs are. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm going to give away the house. It doesn't mean that I'm going to do things for free. Because if you're doing stuff for free, then you've got a lot of people who are getting things from you that don't really value what you bring to the table. That's why it's so important to have that transaction of saying, hey, you know what? You touched my life. You helped me in my life. You brought benefit. You brought value to me in my life. I'm a different person. I've been served in this kind of way. And allow that paycheck that you get in your hands to say, this is kind of like a thank you note. This is kind of like, hey, I'm rewarding you, and I'm recognizing the fact that you did an amazing job in my life. This is how we start to deal with the feelings of being undeserving, is that we've got to change the rules. Your rules, if they, again, are not setting you up, if they are not attainable, and if there are very few ways for you to actually accomplish being deserving, then that means that you have unfair rules in place. And so I'm going to encourage you. Maybe it wasn't in those few things that were an example, but I'm going to encourage you. If you have any of that showing up in your life, that you start actually looking at, how am I defining what makes me deserving and what doesn't? And I dare you to even do it with a friend. I dare you to do it with a spouse, so that they can also tell you some of this stuff, if you don't see it for yourself, is nonsense. And that you've got to adjust the rule. And you know what? Who gets to set the rules except for you? At the end of the day, they're your rules. They're not anybody else's. So if it's not helping you become more resourceful, if it's not getting you to where you need to go, then they got to change. They've got to be adjusted. Let me say hello to a few more people in here. Let's see. Michelle says this series hits home for many. Bravo for insight and changing beliefs. Thank you. There's Adrienne, who's on the beaches in Florida. I saw pictures earlier today. All right. And there's Santos joining us from Stockton. Welcome. There's Matt. Can I do the class from beginning, or is there a repeat video of all the modules? Are we talking about as far as our online program? Yeah, you can go in and you can repeat those videos as much as you want to. Aruba joining us from Michigan. Welcome. There's Diane from South Carolina. Awesome. Let me pay the bills really quickly, and then I'm going to take any questions that you guys might have with the rest of our time. Now, for those of you who have never gotten trained and certified as a coach, maybe that's part of your next step, is actually to work on developing yourself and getting your potential extracted out of you. There's a couple of different ways that you can actually get trained and certified as a coach through our program. One is through the Life Coach Certification course. It is fully online, on demand. There's 10 core modules. When you complete those core modules that are focused on the major core competencies of a coach, when you work through those modules, the training, the videos, also the activities that are at the conclusion of those so that you're putting into practice what you're learning. Pass the exam at the end and you've earned your credential. It is a fully online, on-demand program. You could actually get enrolled today because we have open enrollment all the time. You could literally enroll today and knock out your certification. We also have a Jumpstart program, and it's for people who want the business development help in addition to getting trained and certified. Now, these are not two different things to buy. Actually, if you buy Jumpstart, life coach certification courses is part of it. Jumpstart includes an A to Z business development roadmap, and we show you everything from how do you discover your target market, how do you discover your niche, how do you sell. We've been adding a lot of new content, and so there's literally dozens of videos for the A to Z business development roadmap. We've adjusted a lot of these things to really work in a post-COVID world. Because how do you actually build a business, even though the world's changed in some ways? And so we really show you how to either be a traditional face-to-face coach, a hybrid coach, which is a combination of online and traditional, or if you want to be a fully online coach, there's a track for all of those things inside of Jumpstart. In addition to that, we have a live group call every Wednesday. I am live with the students who are part of that program for any feedback, for anything that they're working on, any questions. Make sure that there's ongoing learning. We continue doing ongoing training, and also to make sure that you don't get stuck along the way. The price of that's only $97 a month. If you think that that's a lot of money, it's really not. I'll show you what $97 a month is. It's Starbucks. This tiny cup of Starbucks is about $3.25. If you bought one of these a day, that is $97 a month if you didn't give a tip, and hopefully you are tipping people. Also, we do have a live coaching boot camp. I don't have a slide for that up here, but you can enroll in the live coaching boot camp. It's about 30 days away. It also includes a life coach certification course, plus a weekend boot camp that has additional training, and the cost of that's only $247. So all of this, if you go to our website, ilifecoachtraining.com, you can get enrolled today, and I highly encourage you to do that. Let me see if I see any questions in here. There's Pastor Ann saying your hard work and commitment to serve others are really evident. Thank you so much. That means a ton to me. It really does. Any questions that you guys have before we head out for the day? And I'll give it about 30 seconds. And if I don't get any questions, then we're going to head out. And if you just happen to be joining us at the end, then you can always watch the replay, which will be available immediately. And Pastor Ann is joining us from Miami, Florida. All right, we got Florida in the house. Anybody else? Any other questions before we head out? Santos says, Coach Paul, what would you tell the coach that is struggling to get clients? Well, first off, I would say, who's your target market and what's your niche? So if a coach is saying that they're not getting clients, the first thing is that have you define specifically who that group of people is? That's the first and foremost. And then I would say, what is the daily plan of action? What is the daily strategy that you are actually putting in place to both connect, meet people who are part of your target market, and also what is your strategy for nurturing that group of people? Because every week you should be able to say at the end of the week, I met X amount of new people. I added X amount of people to my email list. I added X amount of people into my funnel. There should always be a strategy, whether you are a traditional coach, a hybrid coach, or a fully online coach. There are things, even if you only have like 3 hours a week to actually work on your business, it's the knowing who your target market is, and it's also the strategy by which you're going. If a coach comes to me and they aren't and they're struggling, it's usually in those two areas primarily. They haven't identified who their people are, and they actually don't have a strategy. They're usually all over the place. And so what we do actually in Jumpstart, one of the things, and I just added, I think 3 modules about this just in the past couple of weeks, is what is the strategy, and actually unpacking what does the strategy look like, because you've got to pick a strategy. What kind of a business are you going to build? First you need to know who your target market is and what your niche is going to be specifically. And when people watch your videos, see your website, anything, they meet you, they should know in about 10 seconds who it is that you help and what problems that you help people solve. It's got to be crystal clear for them. And then the other thing is that how are you introducing? How are you asking them into a relationship? Because we've got to nurture people into a relationship. And there's a lot of different ways that you can actually do that, but you need to actually have a daily plan of action. How are they getting that 5 to 7 meaningful personal touches from you, which is what on average that you see people need before they become a client? It's got to get personal. They've got to feel connected to you. So you can't just simply be an expert. You have to actually build trust and build likability with that individual, because when they are ready for change and they feel connected to you and believe that you have been serving them and you can help, that's the day a coaching relationship is born. Now, that could happen after a week. It could happen after 6 months. But honestly, if we always have a plan and 90% of your time as a coach should be spent making new connections, making initial contact with people, and nurturing this group of people, that you literally have a strategy for throughout your week, every week, to spend your time connecting with people. And so a lot of times I'll meet new coaches or I'll meet coaches and they'll say, I had gotten certified through this other program, but they didn't teach us any business development stuff. I'm like, well, what have you been doing over the last year? Well, because they haven't had a client or something. And I'll look and they've been working on an ebook for 6 months. Or they've only been writing blogs on a website, but nobody even knows what their website is. And they haven't been doing the work of actually making connections with people and everything else. And so having those basic first steps, it's always in that part. If somebody doesn't have clients, it's always in that part. It's unclear who they're helping and what problems that they're actually helping people solve, or there's not a real nurturing that's happening in relationship that builds connection and also reveals the coach as someone who can add value and benefit to people. It's really clear for people who are aspiring coaches. Whenever they see anything that I do, if they go on our website, if they go on our Facebook, if they go on our YouTube or any of those things, it's really clear what it is that Life Coach Training Institute stands for and what I stand for. And I have it boiled down really, really simply in a tagline: Life Coach Training Institute, proficient coaches, thriving practices. Every time you hear from me, I'm either talking about coaching proficiency or I'm talking about how you build your business well. It's very simple. So people figure that out really, really quickly. And then when you see the comments on the video of people saying, wow, this is really adding value to me, this is really helpful, I see the benefit in it, then you know you've latched onto something. And for those people, then it's appropriate for me to say, hey, if that was helpful for you and we did it in like 30 minutes on a free Facebook Live, then you need to quit procrastinating. And if you're ready, let's do this thing. Like, hey, enough. Like, I'm not overselling and I'm not a salesy person, but where it's appropriate, I've earned the right to be able to ask this question. And that's how we actually move people towards it, to the next level of relationship. And you know what? If people don't sign up today, I'm still going to be still be sending an email on Wednesday with helpful coaching tools and tips. That isn't salesy. And next Monday, I'm going to be back again. Hey, you want to connect again? I sent you an email. I'm going live again. And guess what we're talking about this week? And I'm still pouring into people. And you know what? It's interesting because I've watched people this year, some of them who have been on my email list for 5 years, that became coaches this year. And then we have some people who only got in our email list and saw some of the stuff that we had to offer for about a week or two, and they were ready. They saw the value immediately. And so that's what we've got to do. Add more value to people than you ever have in your life. You know what? If you're always serving, this hand will never be empty when it comes to money. Always gets filled. Count on, and we can count on that, the generosity of people to see the value and reward us for it. Hopefully that was helpful. Thank you, Ann. All right. Well, listen, I am going to head out of here. Appreciate you guys all immensely. Make sure you're on our email list. And our email list, we always send tips and tools every Wednesday. Our website is chock full of articles and past vlogs and all of that other stuff on ilifecoachtraining.com. And again, if you're ready to pull the trigger on your coaching career, I think today's a really great day to actually get started. So listen, I appreciate you immensely. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak into your life. I don't take it lightly at all. It really means everything to me. So have a great rest of your week and take care.